You ever notice how, like, when you're in a good mood, things just seem to click? Like, you remember stuff easier, and even complex topics feel less intimidating?
Right.
I was actually listening to a podcast the other day about
Oh, yeah.
the science behind this, how positive emotions can actually boost your brain's ability to learn and retain information.
Yeah.
So before we dive into today's deep dive, which, by the way,
Okay.
is all about the fascinating world of solid organ transplantation, I just wanted to take a moment to set the stage for optimal learning.
Right.
How about we each share something we're grateful for? It
Oh,
could be
right.
big or small, anything that brings a smile to your face.
I love that idea. What's fascinating about gratitude is that it's not just about like feeling good.
Right.
You know,
Right.
it actually like rewires your brain to focus on the positive.
Yeah.
Which can have a ripple effect on your overall well-being and apparently your learning too.
Exactly. It's like priming your brain for success.
Okay.
I'll go first. I am incredibly grateful for this amazing cup of coffee I'm sipping right now. It's the perfect blend of bold and smooth, and it's giving me the energy I need to tackle this deep dive with you.
That sounds delicious. I think I'll join you in a moment of coffee appreciation.
Yes.
For me, I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity to learn something new every day.
Oh, nice.
Whether it's from a medical journal, a conversation with a colleague, or even a podcast like this,
Right.
I find it incredibly rewarding to constantly expand my knowledge and understanding of the world.
Well said. And I'm grateful to have you here sharing your expertise with us.
Thanks.
And our listener, of course. Speaking of which, let's officially kick off this deep dive. Today, you're diving into the world of solid organ transplantation.
All right.
We've got a stack of medical texts, research articles, and even some clinical guidelines to unpack.
Sounds good.
By the end of this deep dive, you'll have a deeper understanding of how organ rejection works, the delicate balancing act of immunosuppressive regimens, and even how to navigate those post-transplant infections. We'll even touch on the crucial role pharmacists play in this whole process.
What's really fascinating about transplantation is that it's not just about the science, you know?
Yeah.
It's about the resilience of the human spirit. We're talking about giving people a second chance at life.
Right.
And that's a pretty remarkable thing to be a part of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's both awe-inspiring and humbling at the same time. Okay, let's start with the challenge that looms large after any transplant.
Okay.
Rejection is the ultimate hurdle.
Absolutely. And to understand rejection, you need to understand the immune system's role.
Yeah.
Imagine your immune system as a highly trained security force,
Okay.
constantly patrolling your body for anything that doesn't belong. Things like bacteria, viruses, or in this case, a transplanted organ.
Okay, that makes sense. So the immune system sees this new organ as a foreign invader
Yes.
and tries to attack it.
Exactly. And there are three main types of rejection we need to be aware of. First, there's antibody-mediated rejection, or AMR for short.
Okay.
This one is caused by antibodies, which are like little guided missiles produced by your immune system,
Okay.
attacking the transplanted organ.
Antibodies-guided missiles. I'm starting to get a visual here. What triggers this type of rejection?
It can happen quickly, even during surgery.
Oh, wow.
Especially if there's a mismatch in blood type between the donor and recipient.
Yeah.
Think of it like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Yeah.
This doesn't work.
So blood type compatibility is crucial. What else can trigger AMR?
Another trigger is something called a positive cross-match.
Okay.
This means the recipient's blood already has antibodies that react against the donor cells.
Oh.
It's like the immune system has a memory of this foreign organ
Gotcha.
and is ready to attack.
So pre-transplant testing to check for these antibodies is super important.
Absolutely. It helps us identify potential problems before they arise.
Okay.
Now moving on to the second type of rejection, acute cellular rejection, or ACR. This is the most common type.
Good to know.
And thankfully, it's often reversible if we catch it early.
Okay, so what's happening in ACR?
This time it's the T cells,
Okay.
which are like the hand-to-hand combat specialists of your immune system
Okay.
that recognize the transplanted organ as foreign and launch an attack.
So it's a different branch of the immune system waging war on this new organ.
Precisely. And finally, we have chronic rejection. This one is a bit of a mystery, a slow process where the organ gradually loses function over time.
Okay.
Due to fibrosis,
Okay.
which is a buildup of scar tissue,
Okay.
and damage to the blood vessels.
So it's like a slow decline, whereas the other two types of rejection are more like sudden attacks.
That's a great way to put it. And unfortunately, with chronic rejection,
Yeah.
Retransplantation is often the only real option.
Wow. So chronic rejection is kind of like a ticking time bomb. Is it something that's inevitable, or are there things you can do to prevent it?
That's the million-dollar question. And we don't have all the answers yet.
Okay.
We do know that managing acute rejection, maintaining good overall health after the transplant, and sticking to your medication regimen all play a crucial role in preventing or slowing down chronic rejection.
I can only imagine the stress of constantly worrying about your body rejecting this precious gift. It must feel like walking a tightrope.
It's a major concern, for sure. That's why the next piece of the puzzle, immunosuppression, is so crucial. Think of it as finding that delicate balance.
Okay.
Taming the immune system just enough to prevent rejection,
while
still allowing it to do its job of protecting you from infections.
Right, because you can't completely shut down the immune system, or you'd be vulnerable to all sorts of other problems. So how do you strike that balance? What's the secret sauce?
The secret sauce is usually a combination of medications.
Okay.
The most common approach is what we call the triple drug regimen.
Okay.
It's like a three-pronged attack on the immune system. Using a calcineurin inhibitor, an antiproliferative agent, and corticosteroids.
Okay, break that down for me. What are these drugs and how do they work their magic?
Let's start with the calcineurin inhibitors.
Okay.
These drugs like tacrolimus and cyclosporine are like the brakes on the immune system.
Okay.
They block a specific protein called calcineurin, which is essential for T cells to activate and launch an immune response.
So by hitting the brakes on T cell activation, you're preventing those cells from attacking the transplant.
Yep.
That makes sense. But I'm guessing there's more to the story.
You're right. Next up, we have the antiproliferative agents.
Okay.
Think of them as crowd control.
Yeah.
They prevent the rapid multiplication of immune cells, further dampening the immune response.
What?
The most commonly used ones are mycophenolate mofil and mycophenolate sodium.
Interesting. So they're like backup dancers supporting the calcineurin inhibitors in their immune-suppressing performance.
Exactly. And finally, we have corticosteroids.
Okay.
Like the ever-popular prednisone. They're powerful anti-inflammatory agents that suppress the overall immune response, acting like peacekeepers to calm things down.
Okay, so we have our brakes, our crowd control, and our peacekeepers,
Right.
all working together to keep the immune system in check.
Yep.
But these drugs, they're not without their own downsides, are they?
You're absolutely right. Immunosuppressants can have serious side effects.
Yeah, what are some of the downsides?
Calcineurin inhibitors, for example, can damage the kidneys, cause high blood pressure, and even affect blood sugar levels.
Whoa, that's a lot to consider. What about the other two types of drugs? Do they have side effects as well?
They do. Antiproliferative agents can suppress bone marrow function, increasing the risk of infections and anemia.
Oh my gosh.
And corticosteroids? Well, they come with a whole laundry list of potential side effects.
Right.
Including weight gain, mood swings, and thinning of the bones, just to name a few.
So it's a delicate balancing act indeed. You're weighing the risks of rejection against the risks of these powerful medications. It's no wonder this is such a specialized field.
Exactly. And that's why close monitoring and dosage adjustments are so important.
Right.
We need to make sure the drugs are doing their job without causing undue harm.
Yeah, you mentioned calcineurin inhibitors earlier, and our source material specifically mentions two, cyclosporine and tacrolimus.
Right.
What's the deal with those two? Are they interchangeable?
They both work by inhibiting calcineurin, but they have some key differences that make them unique.
Okay, what are the key differences?
Cyclosporine was the first calcineurin inhibitor on the scene. And it truly revolutionized transplantation.
So it was a game changer.
Absolutely. But it can be a bit unpredictable in how it's absorbed and metabolized by the body. Tacrolimus came along later, and it's often preferred because it tends to be more consistent.
So is tacrolimus like the new and improved version?
You could say that, but both drugs have their own set of pros and cons. For example, cyclosporine can cause hair growth and gum enlargement.
Wait, hair growth? That's a side effect.
It is. It's one of the quirks of cyclosporine.
Wow.
On the other hand, tacrolimus is more likely to cause diabetes and hair loss.
The joys of immunosuppression. You trade one set of potential problems for another. It sounds like choosing the right drug for each patient is a complex decision.
It is. And to add another layer of complexity, we need to factor in Therapeutic Drug Monitoring, or TDM, especially with these two drugs.
You mentioned TDM earlier. Why is it so crucial for these medications?
Both cyclosporine and tacrolimus have what we call a narrow therapeutic window,
Okay.
which means the difference between an effective dose and a toxic dose is very small.
Gotcha.
Too little drug, and the transplant could be rejected.
Right.
Too much drug, and you risk those serious side effects we talked about.
So it's like walking a tightrope, but with medication levels instead of balance. You need to find that sweet spot to keep everything running smoothly.
Exactly. We need to monitor drug levels very carefully through regular blood tests to make sure we're staying within that therapeutic window,
Right.
controlling the immune system without causing harm.
So if I were a transplant recipient on one of these drugs, I'd need regular blood tests to make sure the dose is just right.
Yeah.
It's like constantly tweaking the recipe to get the perfect balance.
You got it. And just to make things even more interesting,
Right.
tacrolimus can be affected by your genes.
Oh, wow.
Some people have gene variations that make them metabolize the drug faster, meaning they need higher doses to achieve the same effect.
Wow. So genetics plays a role in drug response, too.
That's fascinating. It really is personalized medicine at its finest.
It is.
But we've been talking a lot about these calcineurin inhibitors. Are there other immunosuppressant options out there?
There are. We have a whole toolbox of immunosuppressants at our disposal,
Really? Like what?
each with its unique mechanism of action and set of side effects.
Give me some examples. What else is in this immunosuppressant toolbox?
We have mTOR inhibitors, like sirolimus and everolimus.
Okay.
They work by blocking a different pathway involved in cell growth and proliferation.
Okay.
These can be used instead of calcineurin inhibitors,
Okay.
or in combination with them, depending on the patient's needs.
Interesting. What are the advantages of using an mTOR inhibitor?
One big plus is that they tend to be gentler on the kidneys than calcineurin inhibitors.
Oh.
However, they can cause other issues like mouth sores,
Okay.
high cholesterol, and delayed wound healing.
So there are always trade-offs. What about monitoring? Do these drugs require TDM as well?
Yes, just like the calcineurin inhibitors,
Right.
mTOR inhibitors need to be carefully monitored with blood tests
Okay.
to ensure we're staying within that safe and effective range.
Got it. Anything else in this immunosuppressant toolbox you're giving me a peek into?
We also have costimulation blockers.
Okay.
These drugs interfere with the signals that T cells need to become fully activated,
Okay.
essentially disrupting their communication lines. Okay, so they're like jamming the signals, preventing the T cells from getting the message to attack.
Exactly. Belatacept is a good example of a costimulation blocker.
Okay.
It's given intravenously and has been shown to be effective in preventing rejection,
Right.
especially in kidney transplants.
Belatacept. That name rings a bell.
Oh.
What's the catch with this one? Every superhero medication seems to have its kryptonite.
Well, it carries a rare but serious risk
Uh-oh.
of a condition called post-transplant lymphoproliferative disorder, or PTLD for short.
PTLD, that sounds serious. What is it exactly?
It's basically a type of cancer that can develop when the immune system is suppressed. Because of this risk, belatacept is not recommended for patients who haven't been exposed to the Epstein-Barr virus,
Okay.
which is a very common virus that most people are exposed to in childhood.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Yeah,
There's a whole toolbox of immunosuppressants out there.
you got it.
And the choice depends on the individual patient, the type of transplant, and their medical history.
Exactly. And we haven't even talked about antibody induction therapy yet. That's another tool we use to prevent rejection,
Okay.
especially in the early days after transplantation.
Antibody induction therapy. You've got my attention. Tell me more.
These are medications given around the time of the transplant
Oh,
to quickly knock down the immune response,
okay.
giving the transplanted organ a head start.
Okay.
They can be polyclonal antibodies,
Okay.
like rabbit antithymocyte globulin, ATG,
Okay.
or monoclonal antibodies like siliximab and alemtuzumab.
So it's like a preemptive strike on the immune system to give the transplanted organ a fighting chance. But I'm guessing these therapies come with their own risks, too.
Right. Again, antibody therapies can have some pretty intense side effects.
But like what?
For example, ATGs can cause what we call cytokine release syndrome,
Oh.
which is basically an overwhelming inflammatory reaction.
Oh, that doesn't sound good at all. What are the symptoms of this cytokine release syndrome?
It can cause fever, chills, low blood pressure, and even difficulty breathing.
Yikes. That's definitely a risk you'd want to weigh carefully. What about basiliximab? Is it any gentler?
Basiliximab is generally well tolerated compared to ATGs.
Okay.
It specifically targets a receptor on T cells,
Okay.
blocking their activation without causing widespread immune suppression.
So it's a more targeted approach, which sounds good.
Yes, it's often preferred for patients who are at lower risk of rejection
Okay.
or who can't tolerate the stronger induction therapies.
Okay, so we've covered the rejection triad and this whole world of immunosuppression.
Right.
What happens if, despite all these preventative measures, rejection still occurs?
Right.
What are the treatment options then?
The approach depends on the type of rejection we're dealing with.
Okay.
For acute cellular rejection,
Okay.
the first line of treatment is often high-dose steroids,
Okay.
often given intravenously. We call this steroid pulses.
Steroid pulses. That sounds pretty intense, like a jolt to the system.
It can be, but those high doses of steroids can often reverse the rejection process if steroids don't work. We might consider using ATGs.
Right.
But as we discussed earlier, those come with their own set of risks.
Right. It's like fighting fire with fire.
Yeah.
Using a powerful immunosuppressant to control the immune response that's causing the rejection.
Exactly. And for antibody-mediated rejection, the treatment is even trickier.
Okay.
We might use a procedure called plasmapheresis
Okay.
to remove those harmful antibodies from the blood,
Okay.
along with intravenous immunoglobulin,
Okay.
to boost the immune system in a more general way.
Plasmapheresis. That sounds like something straight out of a science fiction movie.
Yeah.
What exactly does it involve?
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's basically a procedure where we filter the blood to remove the problematic antibodies.
Okay.
It's a bit like doing a system reboot for the immune system.
Interesting. So you're removing the bad actors and replacing them with good ones.
Exactly. And in some cases, we might also use drugs like rituximab or bortezomib,
Okay.
which are typically used to treat certain types of cancer, to help suppress the immune response that's driving the rejection.
Wow. So even when rejection happens, there are options.
There are.
But it sounds like preventing rejection in the first place is still the best strategy.
Absolutely. That's why we focus so much on patient education,
Right.
close monitoring, and proactive management of those immunosuppressive regimens.
Okay, so you've had the transplant, you're managing your meds,
Right.
and you're hopefully avoiding rejection.
Yep.
What else is crucial for life after transplant?
Preventing infections is paramount.
Right.
Remember, these patients are on powerful immunosuppressants, which make them much more susceptible to all sorts of bugs, from common colds to more serious infections.
Right. It's like their immune system's shield is weakened, leaving them more vulnerable. So what can be done to protect them?
Prophylactic medications are key.
Okay.
For example,
Okay.
we often give patients valganciclovir to prevent cytomegalovirus infection,
Okay.
sulfamethoxazole trimethoprim for pneumocystis jirovecii pneumonia, and antifungal medications to ward off fungal infections.
Wow. That's a whole new set of medications to keep track of. I'm starting to see where pharmacists play a vital role in all of this.
You're absolutely right. Pharmacists are essential members of the transplant team.
Yeah.
They're the medication experts helping patients navigate these complex regimens,
Right.
ensuring they understand the dosing, potential side effects, and how to take their medications correctly.
I can only imagine how overwhelming it must be for patients to manage all of these medications.
They can be.
It sounds like pharmacists provide crucial support and guidance.
They do. They're educators, advocates, and a trusted source of information for transplant patients.
Okay, before we move on, let's do a quick recap of what we've covered so far, just to solidify it in our minds. We talked about the 3 types of rejection.
Okay.
Antibody-mediated, acute, cellular, and chronic.
Yes.
We also dove deep into the world of immunosuppression, discussing the triple drug regimen, calcineurin inhibitors, antiproliferative agents, and corticosteroids. And we explored other immunosuppressant options like mTOR inhibitors, costimulation blockers, and antibody induction therapy.
Yep.
And we even touched on the importance of preventing infections, highlighting prophylactic medications, and the crucial role of pharmacists in post-transplant care. Wow, we've covered a lot of ground. I feel like I could ace a transplant exam right now.
I think you could, and I'm sure our listeners feeling much more informed about this complex and fascinating field.
Speaking of our listener, I want to take a moment to acknowledge you.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Absolutely.
We appreciate your curiosity and your commitment to expanding your knowledge.
It's great to have you here.
It's what makes this whole endeavor so rewarding for us.
Well said. And remember, learning is a journey, not a destination.
Right.
We encourage you to continue exploring the world of transplantation.
Yeah.
Asking questions, seeking out reliable resources, and perhaps even considering a future deep dive on a related topic.
Excellent point. We're always adding new topics to our list, so stay tuned for more fascinating deep dives in the future. Now, before we sign off for this part of the deep dive,
Okay.
let's transition smoothly into what comes after the transplant itself.
Yeah.
Life after transplant.
It's a whole new chapter filled with both challenges and triumphs. And it's not just about physical recovery. It's about adapting to a new way of life, managing medications, and navigating the emotional roller coaster that often comes with transplantation.
It sounds like a complex journey. Where do we even begin unpacking all of that?
Well, let's start with something we touched on earlier. The crucial role of pharmacists in post-transplant care.
Okay.
These patients are on complex medication regimens, often juggling multiple drugs with the potential for interactions and side effects.
Right. We talked about those immunosuppressants and all their potential quirks. It's a lot to keep track of.
It really is. And that's where pharmacists step in as medication superheroes. They review each patient's medications, making sure the doses are appropriate, checking for potential interactions, and educating the patient on how to take their medications correctly.
So they're like medication guardians, ensuring everything is running smoothly and safely.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Pharmacists also monitor for side effects and work closely with the rest of the healthcare team to make adjustments as needed.
Okay.
They're the eyes and ears on the ground, so to speak.
I'm starting to see how crucial their role is. It's like they're not just dispensing medications, but also dispensing knowledge and reassurance.
Exactly. They're educators, advocates, and a trusted source of information for transplant patients.
Yeah.
And speaking of information, let's talk about the importance of vaccinations in this population.
Vaccinations. I thought transplant recipients couldn't get vaccinated because their immune systems are suppressed.
That's a common misconception. It's actually crucial to assess vaccination history before the transplant. Live vaccines like MMR and varicella, chickenpox, are generally contraindicated after transplant.
Gotcha.
Because the weakened immune system can't handle them.
So it's like pre-transplant prep work, making sure they're as protected as possible before they go into this more vulnerable state.
Precisely. We want to build up their defenses beforehand. And even after the transplant, we can give them some non-live vaccines like the flu shot and the pneumococcal vaccine to provide additional protection.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right.
So it's a multi-layered approach to infection prevention. Medications, pre-transplant vaccinations, and even post-transplant vaccines when possible. What else is important for staying healthy after a transplant?
Well, managing those immunosuppressant medications is a lifelong commitment. It's not a set it and forget it kind of situation.
Gotcha.
We need to constantly monitor drug levels, adjust doses as needed, and watch for any signs of rejection or side effects.
So it's like a constant dance between the patient, their medications, and their healthcare team.
Exactly. And regular follow-up appointments with the transplant team are crucial. This allows us to monitor the patient's progress, check their organ function, and make sure they're staying on track with their medications and overall health.
It sounds like a lot of responsibility falls on the patient's shoulders, too.
That's true. And that's why patient education is paramount. We need to empower patients to understand their condition, their medications, and the importance of self-care. Things like eating a healthy diet, getting regular exercise, and avoiding smoking and excessive alcohol are crucial for maintaining good health after a transplant.
It's like they're taking on a whole new lifestyle, not just a new organ.
You got it. And let's not forget the emotional and psychological aspects of transplantation. It can be a stressful experience for both the patient and their loved ones.
I can imagine. It's a major life event. And there are probably a lot of emotions to process. Fear, anxiety, hope, gratitude.
Exactly. Many transplant centers have support groups and mental health resources available to help patients cope with these challenges. It's important to remember that they're not alone on this journey.
That's so important. It's a reminder that healthcare is about more than just treating the physical body. It's about supporting the whole person.
Couldn't agree more. And speaking of supporting the whole person, let's circle back to those aha moments you mentioned earlier. There's so much about transplantation that can spark curiosity and wonder.
Absolutely. It's a field filled with incredible stories of resilience, innovation, and the power of human connection.
One of the things that always amazes me is the precision of the matching process. We're not just looking for a compatible blood type. We're considering things like tissue typing, antibody levels, and even the size of the organ to find the best possible match for each recipient.
Like finding a needle in a haystack.
It can feel that way. And it's a constant reminder of the incredible complexity of the human body and the ingenuity of the medical professionals who are able to navigate these intricate pathways.
And speaking of intricate pathways, we've talked a lot about the how of transplantation.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about the why. Why is it so important?
That's a profound question.
Yeah.
Transplantation offers a second chance at life for people facing end-stage organ failure.
Right.
It's a chance to reclaim their health, their independence, and their dreams.
Yeah.
It's about restoring not just a physical organ,
Right.
but a whole life.
Like hitting the reset button.
Yeah.
A new beginning filled with possibilities.
Exactly. And the impact goes far beyond the individual recipient.
Yeah.
It ripples out to their families, their communities, and even society as a whole. Think about the economic and social benefits of having healthy, productive individuals contributing to society.
It's a reminder that healthcare isn't just about treating diseases,
Right.
but about investing in human potential.
Well said. And transplantation is a powerful example of that. It's a testament to human ingenuity,
Yeah.
compassion, and the unwavering belief in the possibility of a better future.
It gives me hope for the future of medicine and what we can achieve when we set our minds to it. And speaking of the future, I'm curious about what lies ahead for transplantation. What are some of the challenges and opportunities on the horizon?
That's a great question. One of the biggest challenges we face is the ongoing shortage of donor organs.
Right.
There are far more people in need of transplants than there are available organs.
That's heartbreaking to hear.
Yeah.
What can be done to address this shortage?
There are a number of efforts underway to increase organ donation rates,
Okay.
including public awareness campaigns, education initiatives, and even exploring new technologies to improve organ preservation and transportation.
So it's a multifaceted approach involving education, innovation, and collaboration.
Exactly. And another area of focus is on improving long-term outcomes for transplant recipients. We're constantly striving to develop new immunosuppressant medications with fewer side effects.
Great.
And to better understand the factors that contribute to chronic rejection.
And it sounds like there's a lot of exciting research happening in this field.
There is, and one area that holds immense promise
Ooh, I like promise.
is the field of xenotransplantation.
Xenotransplantation.
Yeah.
That sounds like something out of a science fiction novel. What is it?
It's the idea of using organs from animals,
Oh, wow.
specifically pigs,
Oh, okay.
for human transplantation.
Whoa, that's incredible. But I'm guessing there are a lot of challenges involved in making that a reality.
There are. We need to overcome immunological barriers to prevent rejection,
Right.
ensure the safety of the procedure, and address the ethical considerations
Yeah.
of using animals for human organ transplantation.
So it's not a simple solution,
Right.
but it has the potential to revolutionize the field of transplantation if those challenges can be overcome.
Absolutely. And on that note of future possibilities, let's transition into our final thoughts for this deep dive.
All right.
We've covered so much ground,
We have expert speaker.
from the intricacies of rejection and immunosuppression to the profound impact transplantation has on individuals and society as a whole.
I feel like we've only scratched the surface of this fascinating and complex field,
I agree.
but I think we've given our listener a solid foundation to build upon.
I hope so. And I hope this deep dive has sparked a sense of curiosity and wonder in our listener,
Yeah.
inspiring them to continue exploring the world of transplantation.
It really is a testament to the power of human ingenuity and the relentless pursuit of pushing the boundaries of what's possible in medicine.
Absolutely. And it's not just the scientific advancements that are remarkable.
Yeah.
It's the human stories behind them.
Right.
The stories of donors and their families who make the selfless decision to give the gift of life.
Right.
The stories of recipients who are given a second chance, and the stories of the countless healthcare professionals who dedicate their lives to making these miracles happen.
It's a beautiful tapestry of science, compassion and hope all woven together.
Beautifully put. And speaking of hope,
Yeah.
I think one of the most hopeful aspects of transplantation is that it's not a one-time event.
Right.
It's the beginning of a new journey.
Right. We talked about the ongoing management of medications, the importance of follow-up care,
Yes.
and the lifestyle changes that are often necessary.
Exactly. And while there will be challenges along the way, there's also the potential for a long and fulfilling life after transplant.
It's a reminder that life is precious and that every day is a gift.
Yes.
Especially for those who have received this incredible gift of a second chance.
Well said. As we wrap up this deep dive, I just want to emphasize the importance of continued research,
Yes.
innovation, and collaboration in the field of transplantation.
Absolutely. There's still so much we don't know, and there's always room for improvement.
For example, we need to find ways to increase organ donation rates, to develop new and better immunosuppressant medications, and to address the ethical challenges that arise as technology advances.
It's a call to action for all of us to educate ourselves, to advocate for change,
Yes.
and to support the organizations and individuals who are working tirelessly to advance the field of transplantation.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And on that note, I want to thank you, and especially our listener, for joining us on this incredible journey into the world of solid organ transplantation.
It's been an absolute pleasure exploring this topic with you, and I've learned so much along the way.
The feeling is mutual, and I hope our listener has gained valuable insights and a newfound appreciation for the complexity, the challenges, and the incredible triumphs that are part of the transplantation story.
Well said. And to our listener, thank you for being here, for your curiosity, and for your willingness to dive deep into this fascinating subject with us.
Yeah.
We hope you'll continue to explore, to learn, and to be inspired by the wonders of science and the resilience of the human spirit.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep those good vibes flowing. And remember, a little gratitude goes a long way.
Yeah.
Both in life and in learning.
It's really amazing.
It is. And gratitude is something that I think we should all practice more of.
Yes. I couldn't agree more. You know what's really interesting is that there's actually a lot of research
Oh, yeah?
on the benefits of gratitude.
I bet.
It can improve our mental health, physical health, and even our relationships.
Really? I didn't realize it was that powerful.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. It turns out that when we focus on the good things in our lives, our brains actually change.
How so?
Well, studies have shown that gratitude can increase activity in the areas of the brain that are associated with pleasure, motivation, and reward.
Oh, wow. That makes sense. Just like we're training our brains to be more positive.
Exactly. And the more we practice gratitude, the more natural it becomes.
Yeah, it's like a muscle that we can strengthen over time.
Exactly. So I challenge you and our listeners to find something to be grateful for every day.
I love that challenge. It's a great way to end this deep dive on a positive note.
I agree. And I want to thank you again for having me on the show. It's been a pleasure talking to you about this fascinating topic.
The pleasure was all mine. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to The Deep Dive.
Yes, thank you.
We hope you learned something new today, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive into a different fascinating topic.